The Nuggets get a quality win versus the Hawks without Trae Young. But the bigger thing is that Jamal Murray was absolutely spectacular. Back or not, Jamal Murray has been ridiculous. You cut me off. I'm not done with the intro. We'll also talk about Jamal and where he's at, and we'll get into the Mavericks trade for Kyrie Irving. All that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I just did an hour on Kyrie Irving. My brain is not in the right place. I don't script these intros. They're all off the cuff. Don't be cutting me off, jerk. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Adam Mares. This is Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We appreciate you guys joining us on all platforms, whether it's YouTube, where you can join the show and be part of the comments section with folks that are hanging out with us on a Sunday night, like Robert Rodarte and John P. and JS Banger and John E., who was the first one in here, hitting us up with a trade idea. Or if you're joining us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcast application, we appreciate you guys being a part of our community. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. Okay, Adam. So we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the win over the Atlanta Hawks from Friday. We can get a show in, and then we'll talk about the or is that Saturday? Well, that was Saturday night. The win over the Atlanta Hawks on Saturday, and then the loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves on Sunday on the back-to-back, a load management spot for the Nuggets, and the decision to make those players unavailable for the game. In the second segment, we'll talk about Jamal Murray after his spectacular 41-point performance on Saturday versus the Hawks and his just stretch of really great games over the last 6-7 games. He's been really terrific. We'll talk about where he's at and the key question of whether there's more. And in the final segment, we'll talk about the Dallas Mavericks trade for Kyrie Irving, how that impacts the Nuggets, as well as we'll get to all the other trade stuff, including the latest on the Bone situation. Spoiler alert, there's not much that I have on that. We'll talk about all that and more in the final segment. We begin with the Nuggets win over the Atlanta Hawks on Saturday night, a game where Trae Young did not play, and it was still like I like that Hawks team. Actually, I think a little bit more. Trae's shooting has been really terrible this season, and I actually really like them when they're led by DeJounte Murray, who had 28 points and 10 assists, and Murray was getting into his spots and I thought played really well. And it just didn't matter because the Nuggets offense is a battleship. It's a star cruiser. It's an unstoppable vehicle with so many options. And we're starting to see this more and more, Adam. That's my big takeaway from that game. It's just like, I'm like, oh yeah, the Hawks are playing pretty well. And I look up and I'm like, they're down 18. Like there's just not much you can do if the Nuggets are locked in, especially when the Nuggets are home. The answer for how to beat this team, a lot is going to have to go the opponent's way.
I mean, yeah, that's the story of this game for me, is just how dominant the Nuggets offense is starting to look and how dominant Jamal Murray is looking. I mean, I know we'll get to the Murray part of this second, but I just look at the season this way. Your first 20 games, they were on the road a lot. Jamal Murray was coming back. Michael Porter was coming back. Put that 20 games in a box. The next 25, whatever it was, 25 games or so, the Nuggets started to look phenomenal. They were at home. They got into an incredible rhythm. Then you get into this section, this was like 2.5 weeks ago, where Denver started missing games. You know, Jokic missed some. They had some guys out. I feel like they hit a little bit of a slowdown patch, culminating with that 76ers game. But since then, you got the New Orleans game and 3 home games, all wins until this previous one. And it's just like, oh, yeah, Denver rediscovered the rhythm, and they reminded you that, yes, at their best, they're just an absolute machine.
I don't really know how to I'm not mad about it. And then like, I think it's important not to be about the whole, the respect thing is always a touchy subject. It does feel to me like the Nuggets are under the radar. Like,
perfect, though. That's great.
Like, it is great. I agree. But it's just funny to me that like the conversation today, and we'll talk about it in the final segment, about like Kyrie Irving trade was like, the West is wide open. And I'm like, have y'all seen what Denver's done to teams?
Yeah. But here's the thing, man. Here's why I'll push back on that. because I'm with you that I think, but I think it'll get there in time that Denver will be like, okay, they're the favorite, even if we don't believe in them, whatever. I mean, last year, Phoenix was the favorite.
Yep.
They didn't get it done. So I don't, this is not a Denver specific thing. If you haven't got the number one reason people don't buy players or teams or whatever is because they've never done it before. People think they're so brilliant in their analysis, man. I'm telling you right now, even your favorite analysts, most of what they do is, oh, that guy's done it before. I know he can do it. This guy's never done it before. I don't know if he can do it. It's not actually that smart of analysis. This is why everyone's looking at the Warriors going like, when it comes time, I just know they can get it done. They showed us nothing to make us believe that.
Nothing. Yeah.
But here we are. So
yeah.
Denver's never done it. People are like, I'm not sure they can do it.
I will say that at least I am one of the people that's out there being like, I've resisted this point on every medium, whether it's podcast or Twitter or whatever, whenever people are like, yeah, but can the Nuggets get it done in the playoffs? I'm like, they made a conference finals. They've lost in the first round once. Like that is the Denver narrative that annoys me the most of all of them. The idea that they're playoff frauds. I'm like, guys, they've been eliminated in the first round once. Do you know how hard that is? Like these teams that are
by the eventual champs.
Yes. Like
the thing is that they lost to the Warriors in the exact same fashion and games as everyone else besides the Celtics. Like it's kind of ridiculous.
We should talk.
I saw Nick Wright, by the way. One time he said like Luka made it like he did this and went to the Western Conference Finals. Meanwhile, Denver lost in 5 in the first round. I thought Luka lost to the same team in 5, but okay.
Yeah, for sure. I was really surprised at the rotation on Saturday night. Christian Brown plays 32 minutes. Vlatko plays 22.
Yeah.
And after the game, I asked Malone about it. And there was a little bit of Malone said he went to Jeff on Saturday morning and said, hey, this is what we're doing. Vlatko's going to play. Like you're not going to play right now. And that Jeff's reaction was no problem, whatever you need. Like totally understand.
That'd be really impressive if that's, the extent of how that went down. If Jeff Green is happy, because we'll talk about Jeff Green. I see people in the comments already, fan base turning on him. I understand in part. I do think he is like DeAndre in that he has an important role on this team, and some of that role is on the court. I just think that there's probably better options that deserve a little bit of runway to go. And if the team is on board with all of that, I actually think it's great news for Denver. That's a really exciting thing. And that Atlanta game was a bit of proof of concept. Bones Highland now has not played in 3 straight games. He didn't play against the Warriors. Nuggets won by 17. Did not play against the Hawks. They won by 20. So the 2 games, where Denver, gave it a go, they didn't play Bones. And in this last one, they didn't play Jeff Green. And I look at that and I go, I think Denver might actually be figuring out who their top 8 guys are going to be from here to the end of the year.
This is not a one-to-one comparison. It is an approach thing. Malone comes from the Van Gundy tree for a number of reasons. But the coach that he has tried, I think, to emulate himself most after, the one that he respects the most, is Greg Popovich. And I have a comp for you with the Christian Brown situation. It's not a one-to-one, but it's an interesting kind of dynamic here. And I actually believe this to be the case. Because one of the things we couldn't figure out is this doesn't make any sense why he's not playing him. The hardest, Tony Parker has talked at length about how hard Pop was on him, even relative to other rookies. And Tim Duncan's talked about this. Pop was on Tony from day one on top of him. And a lot of it was because Pop saw something in Tony, but believed that he needed to mold it, that he really the standards were higher for him relative to other guys. And I genuinely kind of believe that Christian Brown is in a similar kind of situation because of Malone's post-game comment where he was giving him shit, where he was like, hey, you were plus 20. Imagine if you could make a damn layup.
Those parts with you, I think you're right. That part I would agree with you on. He'll bust your chops a little bit more if you're a guy he thinks Michael Malone respects you if he busts your chops because he's like, okay, this guy can handle it, and that's how I sort of do it. I disagree though about the part about his minutes. I don't think that was it. It's a fun theory, but I just don't think that's it.
And I'm not saying that I know where you come down on some of that. I am saying more about the general thing because a lot of this is some of the early season tension dissipated when they started just beating everybody. Like winning did cure a lot. And even then Christian wasn't playing. And I do genuinely think that like some of this is that Malone has high standards for him and like is like, but I guess even the bigger thing is that even if the minutes allotment was not tied to that relationship, I think Malone is still very much like into Christian Brown and like his long-term status, like his long-term path with the Nuggets. I think he believes in Christian Brown.
I mean, I think there's no question that he does. And 32 minutes, by the way, the other night against Atlanta is a big deal. Playing him that many minutes and closing with him. I know KCP got hurt, so there was like, as always, there has to be something that opens up the opportunity. But it just shows you that, hey, he trusted he can go to that guy, and he delivered. He closed. The Nuggets closed with him and the starters, and it was elite. I know they were up big. It wasn't like the hardest close you've ever had to do, but they were only up like 8 points or something like that, and they finished up 20, and he was a big part of it. So I thought he played great. I thought Vlatko played great, and I just liked the rotation that you had there. More than anything, and I've said this all year, more than anything, that bench needs an identity, and I think they have one in their defensive-minded players that they went to.
Elsewhere, the Nuggets on a back-to-back, no Aaron Gordon, no Jamal Murray, no Nikola Jokic in the loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves on Sunday night. Michael Porter Jr. did play in the back-to-back, and credit to him, 22 points on 7 of 16 shooting.
By the way, strange.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. I think maybe it's just like a minutes thing. Like maybe you have to play Bones if that's the case.
It could have been, honestly. I mean,
yeah. So I'm going to be real with you. I had this game on while I was making dinner and I watched it. I don't have many, like I have some Peyton Watson stuff that we can talk about.
You do.
But, like the Nuggets gave that, like the Nuggets had a back-to-back. They have a 4-game lead in the Western Conference. They know how good of a team they are. The Wolves are not going to catch them. So tiebreaker is not relevant. They're going to win the division. So they don't need the division tiebreaker. It's very rare that you're going to hear from me, hey, beating a division opponent doesn't matter. This one really doesn't matter. So the Nuggets gave it up and I don't have any problem with it. Like they have earned the luxury of doing this.
Yeah, my only notes from this game are that Michael Porter looked better than he had. Remember right before he went out of the lineup, and maybe that was because of the injury, he played without Nikola and Jamal for a couple of games while they had COVID, and he looked terrible. I thought he looked okay, like an upgrade too. He looked merely okay in this one. Christian Brown ended up doing some good stuff, 7 of 10. I thought he was all right. And then I will agree with people that I thought Jeff Green was like especially bad in a game that didn't mean anything. And I don't think you can read too much into. I did think that Jeff just looked out of sorts. And to Jeff's defense here, he missed all that time with the injury. Since he's returned, he's played his worst of the year. So I think you have to balance out your, do you need to bench him because he's playing so poorly versus are there just other lineups right now that work versus maybe he like needs a couple more games to get back in rhythm? I don't know the right answer to that other than to say he's been playing poorly. I think the Nuggets can probably use some games without him, but we'll see.
I've said this last 3 seasons. There's going to be months where guys play well and there's going to be months where guys play badly. Vlatko Chanchar should play because he's better right now and he's a good long-term option and what he brings to the table for that second unit matters and all of these things. I do wish a lot of the commentary on Jeff is just caked in. You want Vlatko to play more. And that's fun. Like just
I think it's fair because the only thing I'll say, Matt, is I think it's fair because Vlatko has played better. Like that's it.
Yeah, but I would just like make that argument versus like I don't know. I have a hard time getting worked up over what the 8th guy on the team is doing or 9th guy on the team is doing when they're as good as.
I will say I'm a little worried that Jeff might have hit the wall. I mean, he's at the age where players do. He's 35. Paul Millsap hit the wall. Hey, Paul Millsap hit the wall.
Yeah, again, I made it like I'm not hanging on to this one. I started talking about trading Jeff back when they were struggling in November. Like I am with you. I am worried that Jeff has expired. Is it possible that somebody gets hurt in the playoffs and it's like, oh my God, thank God they had Jeff Green entirely? Like would not shock me in the least. Is it possible that somebody gets hurt in the playoffs and it's like, oh God, the Jeff Green minutes were even worse than expected and that's why they lost the series? Yes.
I wouldn't expect it. Jeff Green to me would be a circle of trust guy in terms of I feel like I know what you'll get out of him when it matters. Yeah, it's not going to be great play, but I do think like if you needed 7 minutes with him, in game 3, you're like, okay, he's not going to screw up royally.
All right, we're deep into it, so let's go ahead and get to a break, and then we'll come back. We'll talk about Jamal and where he's at, the phenomenal performance versus the Hawks. If he's got more, all that and more on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I've got to tell you about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You just pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. I was in on DeAndre Hunter threes versus the Nuggets because I was like, ooh, he takes the most corner threes. Yeah, he hit 2 above the break, but it still hit. No, you're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. They offer projections on any sport that you watch: NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, college football, men's and women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, which is starting soon, esports, NASCAR, tennis, boxing, disc golf, all the sports. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy. They offer safe and fast withdrawals, and they're currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up today and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON for an instant deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. The NBA trade deadline is approaching, and Locked On has you covered. Thursday, February 9th, tune in to Locked On NBA on YouTube at 2 Eastern to hear reaction from the trades that will change the rest of the NBA season. Who becomes contenders and who's tanking for a better future? Subscribe to Locked On NBA on YouTube and don't miss a deal. All right, back here with Adam for second segment. Let's talk about Jamal Murray. There were a number of shots, and God, when Jamal has these games, the attitude that he takes post game is never as infuriating as it. Like, if he has like a pretty bad game, he's actually usually pretty good. If he has a pretty good game, he'll give like a pretty good presser. When he has a great game, he gets on that podium and it's just, he revels in shutting us down in our attempts to ask good questions, and it drives me nuts. He's
so
done it,
true, man.
He's done it to me for 5 years. Because like I was like, all right, what's the shot that you go to when you know you're feeling it? He's like, just take it as it comes. And I'm like, you liar. You're a liar who lies, because that baseline one-legged fadeaway is not a shot that he takes unless he absolutely has it going. I'm sorry, he doesn't. That's like the shot where it's like he's got it going. And he had like a number of those in the Hawks game where I was like, oh man, is he feeling it?
Yeah. He was unbelievable. I don't know if that's his shot. You're right, though, that he does hit that one and it looks really pretty whenever he's feeling it. But I don't know, man. The thing with me with Murray is we've been talking about the first 20 games. He wasn't all that great. Had his moments, but whatever. There was right around the 20 game mark, maybe 25 game mark. The thing that stood out to me was his 2-man game with Jokic looked like it was back. Like the chemistry there. They had a couple close games, in a row, and they just executed so perfectly. And you're like, okay, it looks like he's back. He wasn't quite that quickness or whatever. I think over this last 10-game stretch, I don't know what it is. I'd have to look at the numbers and look at the games, but I'll just say 10 games. His quickness has slowly increased to where I feel like he's more athletic than he was at the start of the year by a meaningful amount, and his confidence is through the roof. I think the first wave of confidence he got over in 20 games, like you're like, okay, he's going to the hole. He had that reverse dunk. He had some things, but the confidence of like great defender on you, clear everybody out, ISO, make a move, step back, and just drain an 18-foot step back in their eye. That's where he's at right now. It's bubble level confidence. He's in an incredible zone. And the most important part of that is you're reminded that as great as Jokic is, you need another superstar, not a good bunch of guys that know how to do something. Like you've got Aaron Gordon, you got Michael Porter, you got KCP, you got these guys that are great role players. They're going to fit in. You need somebody that does something above that. And Murray over the last few games has been doing that, going above that. And just, it's the difference between Denver eking out wins and blowing teams out.
Because I'm a good co-host, I brought up the stats for his last 10 games.
Let's see it.
26, 7.5 assists per game, 5 boards,
7.5 assists on top of 26
assists.
points.
7.5 assists and 26 points per game. Last 10 games. Only 2.2 turnovers.
And then what are the splits? The shooting splits.
You ready for this? 49.5, so 50%.
We'll call 50.
41.3, 91.3. He's
50, 40, 90. That's 50, 40, 90.
He's a 50, 40, 90 shooter in the last 10 games.
So now the question becomes, Matt, is this the level he's at, or is he on a hot streak?
By the way, his 50-49 streak, if you do the roundup, it also continues in the last 15 games where he's 50-45, 89.8.
So is this, I mean, that's even more impressive because it's 15 games. But Matt, honestly, you've been watching. Is this just what he is? Or is he on like a good run?
I'm thinking. I think this is what he is.
I agree. The numbers might not be exactly this or whatever. Like, they'll be highs and lows. Yeah.
The biggest reason I think this is it is he's banged up. Like, he has a number of things that is going on with him. Like, Malone's talked about it. Like, he's had soreness. Like, he's had games where he's landed on an ankle. He's gotten banged up on an elbow. Like, Jamal's taken hit, like he's landed on the ground awkwardly. Like, he has normal NBA midseason banged upness, and he's still at this level. So yeah, to me, yes. Like, I think this is it. A lot of this is that it's not like Jamal is feasting on catch and shoot threes off of them doubling off of him to go double Jokic.
That's exactly it. Great point.
Is like, he is creating his own offense. He's generating for others. There was a long-term like awkward thing of me being like, I'm a little worried because it doesn't seem like Jamal ever passes to MPJ. They're past that. They're like, it's good. He's found him. He's looked for him. He's gotten him good looks. But like, Jamal knows how to run the offense, and he knows how to run the offense with Joker. He knows how to play off of Joker. He knows how to give Joker a few possessions off. He hits like and when he gets cooking, he is able, like, the biggest thing is that in the Hawks game to me was all of the stuff that I've seen him do outside of the, like, I don't remember if he had one of the jump stop pump fake up and unders. That was one of his like signature things. But like, other than that, his quickness, the shiftiness, the double moves, the triple moves, the ability to get guys completely shook. And like, a lot of the game that made him, like, he has comparisons to both Steph and Kyrie in these aspects of his ability to, like, he has a little bit of that game in him. That was not there the first 3 months of the season, and it is there now.
It's really there. And I do think there's even more. Like, I would say the glitch, his nickname's Glitch, by the way, which I think we got to bring back. I'm going to start advocating that we should popularize it because his moves are, that's what he says. It's like a glitch. Like, he jittery and then he gets open. I think he is at, like, if he started the season at 50%, I think he's at like 90%. I think there's another level still athletically of the quickness where he's going to get to. Look at your numbers. You still have those for 15 games? You still have them?
Yeah, I got him.
3-point attempts per game. What are we looking at?
Last 15 for the season, he's at 6.1. Last 15 is 7.4. Last 10 is 8. Last 5 is 10 attempts per game.
This to me is a very, very, very meaningful number. All that stuff you're talking about, how it's not just like, oh, he's hitting the crazy shots. It's no, he's getting what he wants. He's running the offense. He's getting to his spots. All those things are true. A big part of this is his comfort level, and maybe it's his confidence. Maybe it's the quickness is opening things up, being more shot ready, which he would never, again, you said he never gives good answers. Like, he was asked this specifically the other day, and he was like, oh, no, I'm not looking to shoot more threes. Well, you are, so I don't know what's happening. How do you're not looking for it, but you're taking almost twice as many, but whatever. But to me, that's the big number is he spent 2 years, his last 2 fully healthy seasons actually his last 3. So his second, third, and fourth year in the league, he took 5.5 3-pointers per game. That number was consistent. There was no growth there. Last year, the last healthy season, when he got hurt, that went up to 6.6. And I remember a lot of that came late. Like, he started adding it. Right now, as you mentioned, he's at 6.1 on the year, but that number is rising. And to me, it's the biggest difference. The NBA has been solved in some capacities. You do need to take threes, but you need to be able to, like, generate threes, meaning good looks. And to me, that's the thing that he's really done well over his last 10 games.
And again, it's very clear that that's something that he's done. And then we asked him about it post-game. Have you tried to focus in on that? No, just taking what the game comes to me.
I know. So insightful.
He's so good what he wants to be. And every time he has a monster, he's just like, it's not even humility either. It's
right.
All
right, let's play this game though real quick, because I'm curious your perspective as somebody that covers the whole league a lot more closely. The Ringer just had their top 100 players list, that they do. I don't love player rankings, but when the numbers are way off, or way different, you can learn something. I think Jamal came in 40th or something, somewhere around 40th. So the players that are ahead of him, you start to get into like Trae Young, who I think it's hard to like, how do you compare those two guys? Trae puts up better numbers because he does more. But the guys I want to compare to are Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Devin Booker. Right now, I think it's crazy to say Murray is better than those guys just because the numbers are what they are. But here's the thing. With what you've seen the last 5 to 10 games, do you think it's crazy to think that Murray can get to the level by the playoffs that those guys would be even matchups?
Oof.
Do you think Murray can outplay Devin Booker in a playoff series?
With this team, yes. Like, do you understand? Like, does that make sense? So, like, the difference.
You have Jokic on your side, you're saying.
Yeah, and they have so many weapons and defensive help and everything else. Like, a lot of this is that, like, Shai and Devin, honestly, this year before he got hurt, had leveled up to where those guys were engines.
Totally agree.
And it is hard to be an engine. And I think if Jamal had done it, 3-4 years, then he probably would have learned how. And I think that's probably something that's in him physically. I think it's kind of the question is whether he has like the physical energy, because he plays so hard to be able to do it because it's so many possessions, right? And what does that do to you on the defensive end? But if we're just like in a playoff series, can you come out of it and be like Jamal Murray was better than Devin Booker in that series? Yes. Jamal Murray was better than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in that series? Yes. I think that is a level that Jamal can get to.
Donovan Mitchell.
Yes.
Damian Lillard.
Yes.
I mean, and this is my point, is now we're talking about the top 20 players in the NBA. And this is my whole point. I'm not arguing that Jamal Murray is there or has been there. I'm just saying he was on the trajectory before he got hurt to be there. And now over these last 5 to 10 games, he's starting to look like the guy where you're like, as good as Dame is, he might just get outplayed by Jamal Murray. Jamal, like, you might walk away from a series against those two guys and be like, yeah, Jamal is just outgunning him.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what it takes, by the way. That's what it's going to take for Denver to win a championship. That's one of the main pieces. Jokic, we can have faith, is going to be the best player in any series. I mean, you have to have faith. If you're going to win a championship, he needs to be that. But what's your running mate? Can Murray also be one of the better players in a series? We saw it in the bubble, and he's starting to look like a guy capable of doing that lately.
Agree. All right. Everybody in the chat is talking about trades, including I got this comment from Kane Srblanovic, who says, okay, guys, while Mahrez and the other guy are filling time, who should we trade for?
Jeez.
So it's fine. I've only been covering the team for 11 years. It's fine.
I'll tell you, Matt, it didn't feel better for him to use my name. If it makes you feel any better, it didn't.
It's fine. All right. But we'll come back and we'll talk about the Kyrie Irving trade to Dallas, what that means. We'll get Adam's thoughts on that, as well as we'll talk about the rest of the trade deadline, the latest on Bones, and more. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, if you're looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all the fat and calories, you've got to try a Built Bar. Built Bar is so good. I did a core workout, and so my stomach hurts very badly. But afterwards, immediately was like, I need to eat something. And so grab myself a Built Bar. Got one of those churro Built Bars. It's absolutely incredible. What makes them so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. You don't need to wait around to get a box anymore. For years, we've been talking about getting your Built at Built.com, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, and you can just run in and grab a 13-bar box of our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. All of these bars, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. Don't wait. Do it right now. Go check out all the great flavors at Built.com or head to Sam's or Walmart to get yours today. Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar out there. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Okay, Adam Mahrez and the other guy back with you for the third segment here on Locked On Nuggets. All right, so on Sunday, the Dallas Mavericks trade Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, a first-round pick, 2 second-round picks to the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for Kyrie Irving and Markieff Morris, meaning that our good friend Kirk Henderson now gets to cover not only Kyrie Irving, but Kyrie Irving and a Morris twin. By the way, do you want in? I'm buying Kirk a jersey. I'm buying Kirk a Kyrie jersey. Do you want?
Oh man.
Do you want to donate? Is that
no?
No, you're good.
I'm good.
You're good. Look, this is a Nuggets-based show. I have a podcast that's going to be up overnight from Buckets talking about my reaction on that. I'll be on Locked On NBA tomorrow talking about it some more. I wrote 2 columns on it. My thoughts are out there. Let's get Adam's. Adam, I will just tell you, like, from a Nuggets perspective, I do not think that this, like, as much as I think that the Mavericks are a concerning matchup, this makes them more of one, but it does not move them from, ooh, they're kind of scary to like, oh my God. It's just like, oh, the Mavericks are kind of scary for Denver. That's where I'm at with this from a Denver perspective. What are your thoughts on the Kyrie Irving trade?
My thoughts are that it's really volatile for Dallas, and I think that's what everybody looks at when a move like this happens is, oh my God, it's Kyrie. Is it going to work out? Could he be gone in a year? Whatever. Like, those things are well-founded. I think the upside of this is sneaky great for Dallas. I've long said that Kyrie is, in fact, he's the guy I've used when I said the perfect running mate for a Luka, because a lot of people are like, you need a star, like a guy that rolls to the rim or this or that. I actually think that what you need, when did Kyrie win a championship? Alongside LeBron James running spread pick and roll and Kyrie as the secondary guy. Like, LeBron, do your thing, kick it out to Kyrie, then he does his thing. So I actually think this is going to be insanely difficult to guard. Dallas does a great job of playing 5 out. They spread the court. They make it really, really tough to protect the rim. And Luka's as good as anyone at taking advantage of that. But Kyrie is a hell of a second option at just breaking down a defense that has to cover a lot of ground. So to me, I actually think this makes Dallas really good. It makes them really volatile, and it might not work, and it might not work in spectacular fashion. But I actually think the basketball move makes sense.
So Aaron Gordon guards Luka. Bruce Brown and KCP take turns on Kyrie. Jamal, they put him on whatever wing. Reggie Bullock or Josh Green is on the floor. MPJ, if Bruce Brown is not on the floor, MPJ is probably guarding Josh Green, and Jamal is having to guard Kyrie.
Hey, look at who's here.
Which is tough. Hi, Katie. Hey, Katie.
The queen.
I was sad. Katie was saying that she doesn't get to go to her old house, that her dad, when she goes to Minnesota, she's from Minnesota, that like on road trips, like she would say it, she stays in her room and then like her dad makes her pancakes. And I was just like, oh, that's like the sweetest story. Like, and I made my daughter French toast this morning because I was thinking that. So my general thing on this is you're right. I think the Nuggets have the capacity to match up with this. I still feel like the Mavericks' entire game plan is going to be slow the game down to a crawl, make it a single possession game late, have Luka and Kyrie make tough shots and get you over the hump. Like that's going to if this
they can be great in the clutch. They can be a very scary team in the clutch.
And like if there's like a normal basketball game, they're going to get trounced. Like they'll get, because they just can't keep pace. But if it's a slow game, they can try and get there. I will say the Mavericks' problem this season has been defense. That when Dorian was hurt and their other guys were hurt, especially Josh Green, they're 24th in schedule adjusted defense. Like they were 10th early on in the season. That drop off has been significant.
They've had a weird year, though. They've had a weird year. I mean, they've had some guys in and out of the lineup. I will say people are pointing out that they will be terrible defensively, and they're right. I mean, they will be terrible defensively. But your point stands in that, like the Nuggets, they're very good at dictating pace. If it gets to a slow possession game, the variance goes up, and that's a great recipe for a team that plays their style.
I think like Denver still needs to be a significant favorite. But this would this also, this does kind of tie into the previous segment, right? Like Jamal's going to have to go toe to toe with Kyrie Irving because Jokic is going to have to go toe to toe with Luka in terms of production.
Right.
He's just going to have to. But I still kind of look at it and I go, the rest of that team is, unless they make another trade, is Josh Green, Reggie Bullock. We'll see if they trade. They're trying to trade Tim Hardaway Jr. for Karis LeVert. I'm hearing Cleveland's getting better options. So I don't know if that deal is going to get done, but that's like the one thing that they have kind of left is they could package THJ and Christian Wood to try and get a big upgrade. That's the only other thing that's kind of like on the table. We'll see what they do. But as currently constructed, I don't think the Nuggets need to have appropriate fear of Dallas, but I don't think, I mean, you know me, I've said outright before that they need to avoid certain matchups, whatever. Like with Houston, I was like, you cannot play Houston. Like whatever it takes to not play Houston when Harden was there. I don't think Dallas is in that situation, nor is Denver in the same position they were then either.
Yeah, you're probably right. I will say I'm glad that Kyrie did not go to the Lakers. I mean, that I'm glad for that. So and also to Phoenix, and we'll see what some of those moves are. Do you expect a major shakeup in the Western Conference at the trade deadline?
Expect is not something that like I can ever get to because I think deals are too hard to finish. I just think that you can get most of the way there and then they fall apart. So I can't say like I think this is going to happen. I think that conditions are ripe. I still look at Phoenix and I think Phoenix is going to. It is desperate and blatant with the report that they immediately put out today that they are right back there for Kevin Durant if he wants out after this. Like it's just that's what they've been hoping for. I think that's why they kept the powder dry.
Right. Well, and they have an owner that can't make a decision.
Yeah, the ownership is the problem, right? But like every owner is always going to agree on Kevin Durant. So that's kind of the thing here. Is go ahead.
Well, Mikal Bridges today had the ominous tweet of like, "Oh no," or something like that. Like, and then people were like, "He knows that now he might get traded for who? What would the trade be? Ayton and Mikal Bridges?
Ayton,
if you were bringing in KD,
I think actually what they want to do is they want to do Ayton, Cam Johnson, and picks.
Ayton, Cam Johnson, and picks. I mean, that would be a really good team still. Cam Johnson's a good player, by the way.
I think the Suns will the Suns will do everything possible to be like, you get Mikal or Cam, but not both. Right. So like, that's the key. And they'll probably say, we'll give you more draft compensation, but that's the dividing line. And those are the guys that they can move. And if you're the Nets and you're like, okay, we get a big, we get Ayton.
Yeah.
But the whole thing though, is like none of this whole thing again. And this is what I've said is like, nobody knows about KD. Nobody knows. Right. But that is like the one that I kind of look at and I go, that's concerning. I also think that just there's a number of Portland, I think is going to try and make a big move, but I don't know that they can make up enough ground. San Antonio, Houston, no. Memphis is another interesting one. They're in a tailspin. If they decide to go in for it for OG Anunoby, that does change the equation a little bit. I still think that they're going to be low on half-court offense. I'm not necessarily – I still am low on their playoff prospects, but OG certainly upgrades a lot of stuff for them in terms of what they need. And I'm not a huge OG guy. By the way, Kane in the comments keeps asking about Conley. Kane, there's no way to make the money work. You literally cannot trade for Mike Conley. There's no scenario in which you can do it. You could put Bones and Jeff Green together, and you're not anywhere close. The only way you can do it is if you trade Michael Porter Jr. You're not trading Michael Porter Jr. for another point guard when you already have one. That makes no sense. They're not trading for Mike Conley. So,
people asking about the Bones deal. I just expect the return. My expectations are low. The one thing I like, 2 second-round picks would not surprise me if that's what it ended up becoming. I will say that this is an interesting moment for Cal because while I don't think you should expect anything big, sometimes big things happen. Sometimes players, part of being a good GM, there's so many aspects to being a good GM, and one of them is figuring out who is the desperate person. And there might be somebody that knew they needed to make a move to save their job who ends up Bones Highland being plan C or plan D for them. And it's like, hey, here's how you can save your job. Here's a young point guard that's whatever. And so I'm curious to see if Cal is able to maneuver and do something of that nature, or if it is just the reported first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, player who's not going to play, insurance policy or something like that. I'm curious to see what he does. Or, by the way, can't trade him. Like, there's also a possibility. I think the Nuggets, they've made every indication. They've said that it looks like they are trying their hardest to get him traded. But sometimes you want a guy to be traded and it doesn't work out. Sometimes you have a team that says, yeah, we'll take him. Let's revisit this next week. We want him. This is the deal. We'll do it next week. And then next week comes and they say, never mind.
Or they've already done another deal.
Or another deal came up for them and now you're left standing there. Like,
yeah.
There's a scenario where they don't trade Bones, not because they decided against it, but because they screwed up.
And what's funny, what's really funny there is how often I hear from execs that complain about like, why didn't they call us back?
Right.
Like, that happens all the time. I need to stress this, that they're like, we would have beaten that offer, but they didn't even call us back. They just called it into the league office. Like
Right.
that's how this stuff does go. Here's two things I will tell you independently. I do not think that Bones Highland for Jared Vanderbilt happens, and you are going to be absolutely floored by how little it's going to take a team to get Jared Vanderbilt. Like that's a comparison of how bad things are right now with the Bones Highland situation.
One thing I don't know that the Nuggets need another player. I like the bench unit with Bruce, Brown, Vlatko, and Zeke as your main guys, with Jeff Green available there somewhere. I understand why people might want insurance policy or might want another player, but I do think that you can easily complicate the rotation by bringing back another player that's kind of in the same mold of what you already have.
I think I will just say that if you're in the Nuggets position and you're going to say, we're not going to try and get a backup big because Jokic is going to have to play 42, right? And we'll get through the 8 minutes. And backup centers are at a premium. Okay. If you're not going to do that, I honestly think the best thing for you to do is just get another wing, because I don't know that you can have enough. I just don't know that you can ever have enough.
I'm just saying, if you were to go get like Najee Marshall was one of the names that was rumored. If he's there, I don't think you play Bruce, Christian, and Najee Marshall all together. It just doesn't seem like that's right, which means who are you cutting out?
It's only an injury policy. Like,
yeah, but even that gets tough, man. That's all I'm saying is that you invite a difficult scenario when it's like, yes, but it's nice to have him as a backup. Is Christian not playing then?
Yeah.
Is Najee Marshall the guy you brought in, you traded for, all of a sudden he's out?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of that I will agree that that's a problem you get to, is like if you just believe in Christian, you just keep Christian. And then if you're like, if we run out of point guards, Ish is going to play, and it's not ideal, but it is what it is. Like there's one name that needs to be mentioned, and there would have to be compensation attached from Denver's side, and I don't know if they want to do that.
Who?
Monte.
You think there'll have to be compensation? Why?
Because Monte's really good.
Yeah, but Monte's expiring. What's he going to do in Washington?
True. If the Wizards are willing to let the expiring go, if they're willing to be like, yeah, we just want to get him. We want to get him.
Why would you re-sign Monte if you're Washington?
Why would they do half of the things they have done over the last 10 years, Adam?
Look, you're right that there's like a chaos here, but I think that if that were a trade that were possible, I think that would be an equal value one, because if you're Washington, why not take a play on an upside young point guard? And unless you're planning on paying Monte, but that would be a crazy decision to me if they're like, yeah, we're all in. You saw what you got with the roster you have.
Agree.
Two other things that need to be talked about real quick, Matt, before we get out of here. Number one, Steph Curry hurt his knee. He is out for multiple weeks. They're already in the play-in zone. I know that they're kind of saved a little bit by the fact that the All-Star break is coming up, but right now they're 27 and 26. They're the 8 seed. They are just one game up from being out of the play-in. They're not good without Steph. How bad does this hurt them?
They actually managed to survive that stretch without him. Okay.
That was a miracle.
I actually think they're going to be fine.
When you say fine, though, here's the thing, though. Here's what I'll say. I predicted they were going to be the 4 seed. Like, I was just like, look, they survived this terrible year, and here they go. So when you say they're going to be fine, you think they're still going to climb in the standings? Or do you think it's like, hey, now they're more likely to be a play-in team?
They're more likely to be a play-in team.
That's tough. That's tough. That means they're playing 7. They're playing the 1 seed or the 2 seed.
I mean, look, a pretty likely scenario here is that they wind up in the 7 seed and they beat Memphis in 6 games.
I mean, it would be great if they were in that zone and then played opposite Denver in the bracket. I mean, yes, but you're playing with fire there.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
And then the other thing was that Ja Morant, it came out, and there's been a lot of stories like this that have gotten either unreported or lightly reported, but this one to me seems like it's a little bit bigger. Is a report that somebody in his camp, friends, acquaintances of some capacity, had maybe pointed a gun at some Indiana Pacers staff after a game.
Okay, the laser was the thing that That's why the staff felt that there was a weapon. They felt the staff that was targeted felt that that's a gun, but they weren't able to confirm it. NBA was not able to confirm that from all talking to everybody.
Have they made an official statement on that yet?
Yeah, the NBA made an official statement
that they could not identify it as a weapon.
Correct. That's why there aren't suspensions.
That's a kind of a damning statement from the NBA. I'm surprised that they would come out with that like that.
The individuals involved are banned. I don't know how long, if it's for the season or lifetime, but they're banned from all NBA events. So they are banned. It's a bad situation. Look, when Chris Vernon of The Ringer, who I respect very much as somebody that understands Memphis and Memphis culture as well as anybody, and Verno is also not delicate. Verno's buds with Tony Allen. Okay. When Verno was on a Ringer podcast and was like, they need adults in the room, that was a warning sign. That's a warning sign.
This is all I was saying. This is why I brought it up, is that they have been in a tailspin. And I think some of this, like John Morant, it was also, I think, came out public that he had an altercation over the offseason, outside of basketball. They've lost 8 of 10 or something like that. And I think there might be just a little bit of that stuff going on as well. In addition to just the team is losing some games they're not supposed to. I think it started as that, but there might be some distractions there. And it's just, look, man, the NBA season's long and there's a lot of chaos that can enter into your team. And Denver so far hasn't had a ton of those, but it does look like the Warriors and Grizzlies hit that this weekend.
That's true. Last thing I would tell you is that for everyone hoping for Mason Plumlee, I'm hearing there's a decent chance that he doesn't get dealt. And if he is, he hits the buyout market. And the Golden State Warriors have some interest if he hits the buyout market. So
Mason Plumlee.
Something to keep an eye on there. All right, that's gonna wrap it up. Big show today. Thanks for joining us on Sunday night. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll get you set for the Nuggets game versus the Wolves and the rematch game on Tuesday night. We'll talk about the latest trade news. If there is a trade on Monday, Adam and I will hop on and we'll do an emergency pod. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have yourselves a great week. We really appreciate you guys being with us. Make sure to hit rate, review, subscribe. Give us the 5-star reviews. Make sure to tell us how much you like Adam Mares and the other guy. And we'll see you guys again later next time on Locked On Nuggets.